My wife handed me the divorce papers at the table. I was a firefighter with 30 years of duty behind me. I smiled, left an envelope on the chair. They'd understand everything after tomorrow's meeting at the bank. It all started on December 24th, in the evening, when normal people pour wine, argue politics around the table, and remember which of the kids are divorced and which are just getting divorced. I was bringing home a present. Yes, a grown man who earns his living with his hands and has never written a letter to Santa, dragging a rocking chair engraved across a snowy highway. "Where you are is my home," was carved into the back. Nothing more, nothing less. I was on rotation for almost 3 months. The fire department had a drill at the base, plus we were shutting down an area after a chemical spill. I made it home through 4 states, with one stop at a motel with showers that either burned or turned you into an icicle. But you know what kept me going? Thoughts of Hannah's surprise. How she'd sit in this chair with a blanket and coffee and say, "You're out of your mind, Michael." And I'd just chuckle. Because yes, I am. In love with her. When I pulled up to the house, the first thing I noticed was that the parking lot was full. It wasn't just, well, somebody's in, it was a coven. I recognized her brother's car, the same idiot who had once mistaken my beer for grill liquid and nearly burned down the patio. Saw Julie's minivan, her cousin, who'd said back at the wedding that I was too tough for Hannah. I smiled then. I wouldn't smile now. I carefully pulled the box with the chair out of the pickup. It's heavy. Almost as heavy as my naivete. I walked up the porch. Door was unlocked. The music inside was playing, expensive. The kind they play in movies when everything's going perfectly for a character. 1 minute before disaster strikes. I went in. It smelled of mulled wine and new renovations. The floor had clearly been repainted. The wallpaper was different. Someone had rearranged the house while I was pulling chemicals out of the sewer. I walked further into the hallway. Voices. Laughter. Toasts. Someone in the living room was telling a joke about a plumber and a nun, yes, the exact one that's repeated every year, but they were somehow still laughing as if they'd heard it for the first time. I set the box down and peeked into the room. Hannah was standing by the Christmas tree. In a burgundy dress, with open shoulders. She was wearing a necklace I hadn't bought. And makeup like she wasn't going to spend Christmas at home, she was going to host a TV show. In one hand, a glass of wine. In the other, a white envelope. "You made it," she said. No emotion. No, "Oh my God, Michael." No, "Finally." Just as if she'd seen a neighbor she wasn't really expecting. I nodded. I smiled. I was still trying to make a night of it. "Merry Christmas," I said. "I thought you'd be glad." She walked over. Quietly, calmly. Nothing in her eyes. Like a cashier explaining, for the 3rd time that day, that discounts are only available with a card. "Then this is for you," she said and handed me an envelope. I opened it. Divorce. By mutual consent. The clauses are already signed. Property division is a formality. Comments, no further obligation. Not one line about where I was while she was preparing all this. Not a drop of acknowledgement. Just a signature. I looked at her. "Are you serious?" "Michael, you're the one who always said, 'Don't keep it if it's not working.'" "Yes, I did." When the light bulb went out in the garage. Not about marriage. There was a chuckle in the back. "Her brother, I think." Someone whispered, "Finally." I turned around. The guests were trying not to meet my eyes. Everyone knew. Everyone. Everyone who ate my grill, sat at my table, laughed at my jokes, knew I was going to be eliminated today, and stayed silent. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the envelope. I just turned around, walked out into the hallway, and sat down on the steps. The chair was still there. My chair. No, her chair. I had it made for her. Solid oak, padded and engraved. I worked with a craftsman in Oregon. I overpaid because I wanted her to feel cared for, even if I wasn't around. It's funny, right? The fireman who saved other people's houses didn't see his own burn down. I took the protective film off the chair. The corners were a little worn from the road. I opened the door. Put the chair against the wall, under the tree. Hannah stood in the doorway. "You shouldn't have come unannounced," she said. "You shouldn't have warned everyone else but me," I replied. She didn't answer. I took down the welcome home sign I'd nailed on the door myself in the spring after I'd repaired the porch. Put it on the seat of the chair. Turned around. Walked out. I didn't slam the door. Didn't make a scene. I just left. That evening, I sat in a motel off the highway, drinking cheap coffee from the machine and staring at a copy of the prenuptial agreement I'd pulled out of the glove compartment. There was a line in it that she'd apparently forgotten. All financial assets acquired with the income of either party shall be subject to distribution after an audit. I smiled. Foolishly. Not gloating tired. I wasn't prepared for this. But if she decided to play paper games with me, fine. I've worked with protocols. I knew what signatures looked like. I knew how deals were written. I read documents before I signed them. And now I've decided to go by her rules. Only I'd read it all the way through. But first I closed my eyes. And I allowed myself 5 minutes. 5 minutes to be the one who had just been crossed off. 5 minutes to feel what it was like to be an extra in my own home. I woke up early this morning. Habit. When you work fires, your body doesn't recognize the clock. It just reacts. Smoke, get up, alarm, move, bell, grab your shoes. I packed up and drove to the nearest bank. There was a line. The clerk, a 20-something guy with a haircut like he's in a TV show about rich teenagers, asked, "What can I do for you?" "I want a printout of a joint account. From December. With details." "Do you have a power of attorney from your wife?" "It's my account. It's joint. I'm the holder. Here's the paperwork. Here's some ID." He took the papers, checked them like I was asking him to hand over a nuclear suitcase. Then he left. Came back 5 minutes later with a pouty face. "I need to confirm something with the manager." Hold on. The manager's here. Older. Wearing a suit too expensive for their neighborhood. Handed me an envelope. I opened it. 15 transfers. To a legal entity, registered in a name I was seeing for the first time, Amber B. Consulting. How much? Over $120,000. Everything we've been saving. Reserve, insurance, overtime, vacations I didn't take. It all went there. Without my knowledge. I looked at the manager. "Is that legal?" "We can't challenge a transfer if it was initiated by one of the holders. Even if they went to an offshore company set up 3 weeks ago?" He shrugged. As if it wasn't my marriage, but a discount card that had expired. I walked outside. It was starting to snow again. The cold was hitting my nose. Inside, nothing was beating anymore. I got into the pickup, put the seat down and just froze. 5 minutes. Not angry. Just thinking. How the hell can you be so blind? And then I decided, I'm not gonna guess anymore. I'm not gonna jump to conclusions, make theories. I'm just gonna get the facts. Prove it. Not to her, to myself. That I still understand something. That I'm not just a set in someone else's play. From that moment on, I began to observe. And every move they made, I wrote it down. Because if they're gonna throw me out, they can try it when I start reading out loud. I went back to the same motel. Same room. Same coffee from the machine, only it tasted a little bitter. Pulled out of my bag the old notebook I used to write down duty assignments, fire coordinates, personal reminders. Opened to a blank page. Day 1. She knew I was coming. And she made a spectacle of it anyway. Day 2. Money. Company. New name. No coincidences. Day 3. The paperwork's in Landis' lawyer's office. He didn't expect me to show up in person. I wasn't writing for the court. I wasn't writing for friends. I didn't write for revenge. I wrote to stay sane. To prove to myself, I'm still here. I am me. Not someone who can be rewritten like a clause in a contract. And then I took out an envelope. Just like the one she gave me for Christmas. Only inside wasn't divorce papers. It was a list. With dates. Places. People. I knew what to do with it. But for now, I just sealed the envelope. I wrote her name on it. And put it on the windowsill. Because sooner or later, she's gonna have it in her hands. I didn't drink. I didn't make any phone calls. I just lay on the bed, turned on the ceiling fan and listened to it creak. Like an old house that's gone wrong. And you can't fix it. Just take it apart. And walk away. But before you do, make a record. No abbreviations. What happened next changed everything. Subscribe and stay, you don't want to miss how it unfolded. On the third day after Christmas, I sat in the stuffy reception area of a law firm that smelled of leatherette, dried coffee, and corporate indifference. The walls were painted a trendy gray, as if on purpose to make you feel just as dreary. A guy in a tie walked past me, nodded, but his eyes read, "You're just another one, and you're here for the long haul." I had an appointment with a Mr. Stevens. I asked to see him in person, no correspondence. Papers in hand. I needed to see faces. Because unlike them, I don't just read the text, I read the pauses. And the pauses in this case were as fat as the layers in the cake I was presented with on the 24th. Mr. Stevens turned out to be a smooth type. Too expensive tie, too clean fingernails, too blank eyes. He started from the doorstep with, "I'm sorry you had to come," as if I were a tourist, not a man who'd been thrown out of his own life through a legal loophole. "Your spouse filed everything according to standard procedure. We have notarized signatures." Interesting. I've never seen those documents before. She provided power of attorney. It's all legal. Power of attorney from who? I looked at it. Slowly. Very slowly. And I said, "I'm a fireman. I could basically forget where my passport is. But if I ever signed a power of attorney to sell my own life, I'd remember it." He looked away. Played with a pen. Then he printed out a sheet of paper. It read in black and white, "Power of attorney in the name of Hannah Crawford, issued by Michael Crawford, signed and authenticated in Berkeley County." The date was exactly 1 week after my last tour of duty. I was in Houston at the time. That could be proven in 5 minutes. You're not authenticating it? We follow the law. If it's notarized, even if it's a fake, we have no authority to interfere. Convenient, damn it. Very convenient. Your wife forged the power of attorney and you, Mr. Crawford, can complain at your leisure. In the meantime, thank you for choosing our firm. I took the copies and left. It was snowing outside, the kind of wet, sticky snow that makes your shoes a size smaller. I got in the pickup and turned on the heat. My breathing was still labored, like my lungs refused to accept the truth. I didn't go home. I went to the county archives, where it smelled of dust and spilled coffee and underfunding, where the women behind the counter wore sweaters so tight you could guess the season before you even stepped outside. I walked up to the counter. I'm looking for the records of a notary who handled documents in Crawford's name. December. Berkeley. A woman not looking up. You'll need a Form 41B. And fill out an application. Check in before a week. I put down my ID, fire badge and added, "Request out of turn." I'm an officer involved in a spill response in the Houston area during this period. They're trying to screw me over with a fake power of attorney. She looked at the badge, then at me, then at the badge again. And nodded. "Give me half an hour." Exactly 26 minutes later, she brought out a folder. Inside was a list of notarized acts. And yes, among them was a power of attorney on behalf of Michael Crawford, authenticated by a woman named Loretta Bailey. Address is an apartment building, not an office. I raised my eyebrows. Is this a normal practice? No, the woman said. Loretta hasn't been authorized to certify anything for 3 years now. She's been removed from the registry. Signatures made in her name after November are invalid. Can you certify it? To the best of my ability, yes. Would you like a copy? 10 grand. And a scan. Now I didn't just have a suspicion. I had a proven forgery. So I went to Randy, ex-cop, now an independent consultant. We'd served together in the fire department until he left after a corruption story he'd pulled and nearly paid for. If anyone knew how to play by their rules, it was him. I laid everything out on the table, documents, copies, extracts, photos from the base on the day of the signature, statements from the archives. He silently looked through everything. Then he stood up, poured 2 coffees from a thermos and said, "Are you ready to go all the way? I'm not looking for revenge. I just don't want her to think she can rewrite me as a passable paragraph in a contract." He nodded, then handed me the clipboard. "Then start with this." On the screen was a report on Amber B. Consulting. Officially incorporated on December 2nd. Owned by an Amber Bates. Now, the cherry on the contact info is a number that Hannah used to have. Just a forgotten work cell phone that she supposedly hasn't used in a while. An accident? I'd believe it. If I wasn't a firefighter. There are no accidents in our line of work. Only arson that wasn't properly hidden. So she took the money out on the company she'd created, I said slowly. Not her, Randy corrected me. Technically a third party. Either a front man or someone close to her. Most likely a lover. I'll look into who did the registration. In the meantime, find some old bank statements. We need to track when the movement started. I'm back in the trailer. It's simple, but it's mine. Not the house they were trying to squeeze me out of, not a temporary place, my corner. I pulled out a box of papers, went over the old statements. First movement was December 5th. A transfer for $4,200 marked counseling services. The second was $13,700. Then $8,000. And so on. I didn't immediately realize that this is what leaving looks like. Not a scandal. Not a tantrum. Not slamming the door. Just a systematic withdrawal of you from life, line by line. Transaction by transaction. The next morning, Randy sent me a name, Terry Holt. A former financial consultant, now the owner of 3 small companies, one of which is registered at the same address where Amber B. Consulting. Connections to Hannah? He accompanied her department to a tax clinic last year. Photos? Smiling, jacket, corporate party. Hand on my then-wife's waist. You think he's in charge? I think he's the doer. She's the initiator. You're in the way. Randy's words stung. But I knew he was right. I was already out of the script. All that was left was the paperwork. I wasn't just sitting around. I filed a counter-request with the bank. I attached documents, copies from the archives, a statement of forgery. The signatures on the power of attorney were forged. The witness is invalid. The company's startup account is linked to a man with a personal connection to my wife. You know what they said? We'll forward your request to the legal department. Expect a response within 45 business days. 40 business days. I hung up the phone and laughed. Not with amusement. At the absurdity of it. You save a house from fire in 45 seconds, and you have to rebuild your life in a month and a half if you're lucky. I went outside. It was snowing fine, prickly snow. In my face. Like a truth I'd ignored for a long time. I went into the car wash on the corner. A guy named Brandon worked there. His father had served with mine up north. We knew each other through 3 generations. He saw me and knew right away I wasn't here for a car. You got a problem? You want to make a little money? Depends on what you do. Nothing illegal. I just need someone to get an envelope. In their hands. In person. Without further ado. He nodded. What? New Year's Eve. That's when things were going to start coming back to where they weren't expected to be. December 31st. I sat in my car in front of the house where it all began. Christmas lights outside, and inside, reflections of glasses and shadows moving to the sound of jazz. They were laughing. They were celebrating. I was watching. I had that very envelope in my hand. It was thick. Cream-colored. Inside, no threats, no curses. Just paper. A letter. A list. A few copies of documents. And one phrase on the cover. You knew. From day one. I didn't go in. I didn't call. I handed it over to Brandon. He knew what to do. When he got back to the car, he said only one thing. She turned pale. Terry snatched the envelope from her, but she had already read it. The whole room went silent. No one realized what had happened. But she did. I nodded. Started the engine. This wasn't retaliation. It was a delivery of truth. No emotion. No screaming. Just a document that can't be burned, because it's already been read. This is the climax. Everything you've been waiting for is right here. Subscribe now to see the hero put everyone in their place. On January 1st, I woke up without an alarm clock. Not because I had slept well, because there was nothing else to ring inside. It wasn't the new year. It was something else. A clean slate? More like the last leaf of an old book you didn't choose. I got up, washed my face in the sink with the rusty faucet, and looked in the mirror. Not pity. Not anger. Just, well, that's it. My plan was simple. No big words. No show. Just documents, just facts, just cold consistency. I drove to Randy's office. He was already waiting. He set aside his sandwich and handed me a clipboard. Here we go. The letter's out there. Some of the guests leaked it to the chat room. Someone posted a story where she's sitting there white as chalk. And Terry's gone. Disappeared how? Deactivated his social media, deleted his website, disconnected his cell phone. Classic. I guess I didn't expect you to have the guts to bring all that to her doorstep. I didn't respond. I wasn't happy. Terry wasn't my main enemy. He's just someone who saw a gap and stepped in. He's not the one I want to teach him a lesson. I want her, Hannah, to look at what she did. Not in anger. In silence. In the mirror. Randy held up another document. Check this out. IRS registry. There's a money laundering complaint filed against the company the transfers went through. I don't ask who filed it. I shrugged. I just used a form on their website. Anonymous. He nodded, like a man who knows how to appreciate restraint. And now? Now I disappear. He was surprised. A little. Forever? For her yet? Not for me. I didn't make it clear. But I had a plan. Only it didn't involve high-profile revenge. It involved freedom. And a name. My name that no one else would sign for me. I stopped by the bank. Asked them to take the balance out of my personal account. It wasn't much. But it was enough. I opened a new account. Under a different name, adding a second name I hadn't used before. Changed my number. Closed the old SIM card. Cleaned up the addresses. I wasn't running. I was leaving. As I drove out of town, the navigator lost track of itself. The signal was gone. I was on a highway I knew by heart. Every gas station, every motel, every goddamn coffee shop with a thermos. Those were my landmarks, not maps. I knew where to turn left to avoid being followed. I knew where it was best not to say my real name. I got a room in one of those motels. An old TV with a remote on a cord, a creaky bed, and a carpet the color of tired sand. I wasn't complaining. I drank water from the faucet, stared at the ceiling, and reread my letter. Not the one I'd given away. The one I wrote for myself. There were no recriminations. There was no pain. Just a list. You withdrew $128,000. You made a power of attorney knowing I was out of state. You arranged a night out with your family the day I drove the chair to you. I didn't write this because I wanted to sue. I wrote it to remember. So that one day, if the thought of, maybe it wasn't that bad, comes up, I can open up and remind myself, no, it was exactly like that. Bad is an understatement. The next day I went to the city hall of a small town about 200 kilometers from what I had once called home. I asked for a certificate of change of address and a work permit. Not a name, just a path. I wasn't hiding. I just wasn't going back to that structure where they make a background out of you. And just when I was about to close my laptop and think that maybe life was moving forward after all, I got a text from Randy. They opened a case. Forged power of attorney. The DA's office is looking into it. The bank leaked the whole thing when they realized they didn't want to be an accessory. I read that message 3 times. Not because I didn't believe it. It was because I didn't know how to feel. Joy. It's not victory. I'm not getting back what I lost. I'm not buying my family with kickback money. But I felt something else. Quiet. Stable. No ringing, no screaming, no, where have you been? Just, I was where no one else was signing up for me. A week later, I was working at the local fire station, not as chief as I had been, but as a regular duty officer. I was fine with that. No politics. Just business. Just the sounds of the alarm, the smell of burning, the short signals on the radio. I was back on fire but on my own terms. Guys didn't ask questions. All they knew was that I came with a recommendation from an old friend. That I don't drink. That I come early and leave late. That I was quietly repairing old hoses while the others were discussing sports. One day, toward evening, one of them, Ray, sat down next to me and said, "You were something up there in the north, weren't you?" I was. "And now you're just on duty? Now just a man." He nodded. No pathos. No sympathy. With respect. I was no longer looking for the point of explanation. Those who want to understand will understand. The rest of us can't. But the story didn't end there. Because 3 weeks later, I got a letter. Not an email. Paper. From her attorney. My client regrets the potential misunderstandings and asks that you consider renegotiating the arrangement due to the investigation that has been initiated. I laughed. In my voice. To the entire guard. What is it? I asked. They're asking for a renegotiation. Apparently, when the envelopes change sides, some people start remembering who you were. I didn't answer. I didn't write. I didn't call. Just put the letter in the drawer where I kept the old porch sign, "Welcome home." No, I'm not going home. Because home is not a place. Home is respect. And where he was burned, there's nothing but ashes. 2 months later, Terry showed up. Turns out he'd been fired from all 3 companies after the IRS found inconsistencies in the schemes. He's been trying to get in touch. First through a mutual friend, then through Randy. He wants to meet, Randy said. Does he want to apologize? He wants to discuss the consequences. Then let him take it up with the DA's office. I'm not the consequences. I'm the cause. And that's when I finally realized I'm not the victim of this story. I'm the end of the story. I'm the one who closed the circle. I went to the same shop where I ordered the chair. With the same craftsman. I ordered a second one. Not a copy. A new one. No inscription. Just a chair. For myself. On the back I had it carved, "I survived. Everything else is superfluous." By spring, I'd built myself a little porch by the trailer. Not like the house back then with expensive tile and projects. Just a wooden base, a couple steps, a couple lights. Simple. Every morning I sat in my new chair, poured myself a cup of coffee, and watched the sun rise. No rush. No phones. No, where were you when I was sick? One day I saw a picture of Hannah in the news feed. A court hearing. Her face gray, her hair pulled back, her eyes downcast. The headline, "Fraudulent Power of Attorney and Asset Withdrawal Case Under Consideration." I didn't click. I didn't need to know the details. Everything I needed to know, I already knew. I didn't cheer. I didn't drink to justice. I didn't call Randy with an, "I told you so." I just poured myself another cup and exhaled. Like after a long run. Like after the smoke had finally cleared. Sometimes people think revenge is loud. That it's from the podium. That you have to destroy it to prove it. But that's not what I've learned. Real victory is when you no longer have to prove yourself. To no one. Especially to yourself. In the 3rd month, I got an order. A chair. Carving. For him who rose from the ashes. It was commissioned under a different name, but I knew whose idea it was. It doesn't matter. I thanked him. And delivered the order in person. No notes. No phrases. Just hands to eyes. And silence. Hannah didn't say a word. Just took the chair, nodded. And walked away, where no one called her a fireman's wife anymore. And I stayed. And that was probably the loudest point you can make without a word. A couple days later, I sent another plaque to the shop. No one needed it but me. I hung it above my entrance. Simple, condensed to its essence. Here lives a man who wasn't broken. No decorations. No names. Just the truth. And you know, I didn't expect anyone else to see it. It was enough that I saw it. And that was more than enough.